Okay, we're now recording.
Thank you, Liam. So, big welcome and thank you all for dialing into our Building Bridges webinar about crossing the digital divide between parents and children, and in particular in the context of online gaming. And we are really delighted to be part of this year's Leeds Digital Festival. Quite ironically, this webinar will be touching on digital exclusion and digital resilience, which is obviously, if you look at the program of the whole festival, is quite an interesting sort of angle on things. So I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Merte Elbers. I'm a health improvement specialist in public health in Leeds City Council. And I'll just hand you over to my colleague, Sophie.
Hi everyone, thank you Myrta. My name is Sophie Linnington, I'm Deputy CEO at Parent Zone.
And Liam?
Hi everyone, my name is Liam Gownet. I'm a Senior Librarian with Leeds Libraries working on our digital programme. We're hosting today's session. Very delighted to have Myrta and Sophie with us.
So I'll just run through our presentation. So I hope you can all see that information clearly. So just to start us off, really setting the scene. So gaming is now the world's favorite form of entertainment, as the gaming industry generated more revenue last year than TV, movie, and music did. So as a bit of a non-gamer myself, this is quite a surprise actually. And maybe it's a surprise to some of you as well, but gaming is big business. So some of you may have seen headlines, especially throughout the pandemic, of course. As a parent of two young teenage boys myself, I've struggled a fair bit with the whole sort of balance of online time and how much is too much, and that whole thing about peer pressure, not just as parents but also amongst teenagers themselves. So there's obviously something there about boundaries that we as parents and also as frontline workers that support families might be sort of struggling with. You might have also seen that China, obviously quite a different regime in terms of state intervention compared to the West, has actually it will be actually curbing the screen time of young people. And it was quite interesting that this headline said moves to restrict children's access may be welcomed by many. You've got two sort of different ends of the spectrum here. So that's sort of the context that we're operating in here. So I just thought I'd give you a little bit of stats around children and online gaming. So 93% of children aged 10 to 16 in the UK play video games. And for boys, this is slightly higher, but my understanding is that girls, it sort of climbs all the time in terms of girls are really catching up and also really embracing online gaming as a way of socializing and connecting. So the worldwide market was worth $152 billion in 2019. And again, this figure is climbing year on year, and it's billions of people basically play regularly worldwide. Free to play games now dominate the market, making up to 80% of the game's revenue in 2018. And in the UK alone, there are 37.3 million gamers spending 4.5 billion annually. So Ofcom research found that 8 to 11-year-olds spend on average 10 hours a week gaming, and 12 to 15-year-olds 12 hours. So that equates roughly to just under 2 hours a day. Before I hand over to Sophie, I just thought I'd give you a little bit of background as to where this whole idea of digital divide and digital resilience came from. So we've done a lot of work in Leeds around gambling, and we've been looking at sort of gamification of gaming, gambling type activities as parts of gaming. And also we do a yearly My Health, My School survey. And in that survey a couple of years ago, it basically came out that skin betting and gambling as part of gaming came out as the most popular activity that young people between the age of 11 and 16 take part in. This was followed by bingo and betting on sports events, etc. So this is sort of a little bit of the background. What we tried to do as part of Child Mental Health Week was to just promote a couple of sponsored posts just to test out some messages, because we've done a lot of insight with young people and parents and frontline workers. So we just wanted to test out some messages. And you can probably see that there was some mixed reactions to some of these posts. If you can see the little sort of icons at the bottom of some of them, there were some angry faces as well. So we took note of some of those comments that people fed back, and obviously the focus of this particular Facebook post was to talk about in-game purchasing, but people really picked up on the sad face of the child playing a game. So there's something there about being really mindful of the kind of images you use as well, because we know that gaming has been really beneficial for young people over the pandemic in particular, really just to keep in touch with their friends. So there's a lot of learning, as I've put on this slide, in terms of how we frame some of these discussions, and this is where some of this debate around digital divide and parents not really understanding how to set security settings, and some parents saying, well, surely you know how to do that. There's a real clear divide there. So Parents Own and Leeds City Council's Public Health are both part of the Gambling Health Alliance alongside a huge number of other organizations. So if you're interested in that, please have a Google and have a look at the Gambling Health Alliance as what they do. So one of the campaigns that they launched last year was Lid on Loot. So they particularly focused in on loot boxes, as their view is that loot boxes should be regulated as a type of gambling. So this is really where some of the overlap in what Parents Own and Leeds City Council have been doing sort of converges. So I wanted to just make sure that you had that background information. So I'll just hand over to Sophie now.
Thank you, Myrta. So yes, I am Sophie from Parents Own. Here's a little bit of information about us. We're a social enterprise. We work nationally and internationally, all with the aim to improve outcomes for children in a digital world. And we do that by working in partnership with people like Myrta, with large tech companies. We have partnership with Google that delivers a primary school programme into UK primary schools. And we work with schools, local authorities, to ensure that people are able to embrace the opportunities as well as be aware of risks online. So really, we are very tech positive, we're very gaming positive, but we know that for some families, it can be a point of friction, to say the least. So we've done quite a lot of thinking and work on how we can approach helping families feel better informed, parents understanding children's love of gaming a bit more, children understanding why they need to have some kind of boundaries and rules in place. Thanks, Myrta. So I think Liam's already shared a link to one of our pieces of research. One of the other things we do is we carry out our own research. A few years ago, we started to look into skin gambling. So for those of you not familiar with the term, this is where you are able to take online virtual items that you've purchased in a game to third-party sites and gamble with them. So they're not restricted as other gambling sites would be, so much easier access for under 18s. We followed up a couple of years later, looking at the business model of online gaming. So Myrta had a great figure about free-to-play games in her statistics. And one of the issues with free-to-play games is that they are not usually free. So there are microtransactions, there are nudges within those games in order to get people to purchase. And we believe that that model really does exploit children. And I'll talk a little bit more about some of the challenges around gaming in a moment. So both of these research reports you can access on our website and read our response to DCMS inquiries around loot boxes, lots of information. We are very focused on gaming because we understand the benefits, but we also understand the challenges that are brought by the nature of gaming, but also the business model that it uses currently. Thank you. When we think about any online risk or harm, any issue that we want to support families and professionals with, our model is always the digital resilience framework. So Parent Zone is part of the executive board for UKIS, which is the UK Council for Internet Safety, and we co-chair the Digital Resilience Working Group for UKIS. We've really been at the forefront of thinking around digital resilience. Back in 2014, we worked with Virgin Media and the Oxford Internet Institute to produce a report into understanding what makes a child digitally resilient. And what we found was that parenting played a really, really key role. So a much more key role than using tools and rules to kind of control and manage a child's online world. The four main tenets of digital resilience are, as you can see on the screen. So a digitally resilient child will understand when they're at risk online and be able to make informed decisions about the digital space that they are in. They'll know what to do to seek help from a range of appropriate sources. They will be able to recover when things go wrong online by receiving the appropriate level of support from people like you and us, and they'll be able to learn from their experiences and adapt their future choices so that they can continue to benefit from the opportunities, and that includes gaming. So we know that for the majority of children and young people, gaming is very absorbing, but it doesn't become an addiction or a real difficult problem. I'll go on to talk a bit later on about what to do if you are working with a family or you have a child in your life where you are really concerned about the effect that their gaming is having on the rest of their day-to-day life. But for the moment, I'm going to focus on the four pillars of digital resilience and look at how we can use those to support parents and carers to respond to their concerns around gaming. Thank you, Myrta. So we know that there are lots of opportunities around gaming. There have been lots of research projects into how gaming can improve your mood, how it can promote relaxation, and how it can ward off anxiety, not just for children and young people, but also for adults. If those of you that are gamers may be able to, this may resonate with you. Potentially over the last 18 months, I think there has been a new audience for gaming as well, in order to ward off anxiety, promote relaxation and improve mood. For children and young people, there is an awful lot of learning that's around developing social skills and pro-social behaviour, having to work in a team, having to compromise, slight competitive edge, but knowing that you need to work together, and connection. And I've bolded connection here because I think particularly, and I'm probably going to say this a few times, over the last 18 months, online gaming has proved to be an absolutely essential way for young people to connect with their friends. So, for example, my son, who is 17, he doesn't game on his own anymore. It has really become his form of social media, I suppose, that it's been able to give young people a way to escape from what has been happening, not being able to leave their home. They've been able to connect and share with their friends, do something exciting and enjoyable with their friends, as well as benefiting from improved mood and relaxation, etc. So I think connection is a really massive opportunity when it comes to online gaming, and I think supporting parents and carers to understand that. I'll go on and talk about that in a moment. Thank you, Myrta. But I do also know, as a parent myself, but also having worked with parents over the last 20 years, that there are some major challenges for families around gaming. So gaming is immersive, absorbing, and compulsive. It's absolutely designed to be that way. It's designed to be sticky, to make you want to be there. If you sit and wear headphones and you're focusing on a screen, it is completely immersive. Parents have often told us that there's that period when their child stops gaming and they come back into the real world, and they're sort of a bit out of sorts, that it can take some time, having been so absorbed in a game, to get back into the real world, the non-gaming world. This obviously has its benefits, but it does have its challenges because it makes it really hard to self-regulate. So for those of you that have children or work with children and young people, an hour spent gaming can pass in 5 minutes. It's very easy to lose track of time. It's very hard to just come out of a game without lots of support, particularly when children are young. And we know that then is when they need lots more help to know how long is too long, what kind of games are appropriate for them. Self-regulation in gaming is really hard, which is why we would always encourage parents to start thinking about this as young as possible. As soon as their children are showing an interest in gaming or using games, that they talk to them about how to self-regulate. And I'll go on to talk a little bit more about this in a moment, but that, I think, is the most important thing that we can support children and young people to do. And it's not just the length of time, but it's also self-regulating your behaviour online, how you respond when you stop gaming, what effect that has on the rest of the family, all of those sorts of things. So self-regulation is really important. And I suppose coming from a parent's own point of view, as you can imagine, parents are kind of at the heart of our work. And this is really about parenting. Although there are lots of issues that are amplified by access to technology, fundamentally what we want to do is to support more confident parenting. And that is tricky if that parenting is taking place in a world that parents either have no interest in or don't really understand, or feel like it's my child's world, I should leave them to do it. So we want to kind of get that right balance so that we're supporting parents to feel more confident about setting those boundaries, about offering support, and about setting high expectations for how their children should behave when they're gaming. So often parents will talk to me about the language that their children use when they are gaming. They may be sitting with a headset on and perhaps their language is more aggressive, or they're swearing in their conversations much more than they would if they were having a conversation with their family. The thing to remember is we only hear one side of that. So my son would always say, you should hear what's going on in my ears. Not that that's an excuse, but it is about understanding that that's a very hard thing for parents to penetrate, and we want to give them some help without them feeling like they are crossing boundaries or invading privacy. We want to get that balance right for particularly teenagers to have their independence and their relationships and friendships develop online, but also to have some understanding about what is acceptable in your home and how you expect them to behave towards other people. And that is parenting and not tech. So one other thing which we've briefly touched on around the challenges is the spending. So it's very easy, and you've probably heard the horror stories in the media, for children to spend, if there's a credit card linked to their PS5 account or their PlayStation account or their Xbox account, if they've asked their parents to put their credit card details in so they could buy a game, then that is linked, and it's not always entirely obvious where that spending might happen, what the nudges are for children, that particularly in free-to-play and mobile games, thinking that you can just click to get to the next level or to buy some more coins without really having an understanding of that you're actually paying with real money, even if it's not yours, and where that spending's coming from. So there are some tools and tips for parents and carers around how to switch off in-app purchasing, for example, on devices. I would say that's my top tip, particularly with younger children. If you are downloading free-to-play games, make sure that you have in-app purchasing switched off, because obviously if a game is free, there must be some way, there has to be some way for gamers to make money, and we don't have a problem with that. What we do have is a problem with children and young people not being aware that they are spending money. So I think these challenges can often really overwhelm parents and get in the way of them understanding the opportunities. And because these challenges are kind of forefront of their mind, it can often drive them towards a rules and tools approach, which we know is not as effective as engaging, confident, authoritative parenting. So really what I want to do over the next few slides is to think about what parents can start to do within a digital resilience model to get more engaged with understanding how to support their children and why it is that their children love gaming so much. Thank you, Myrtha. So the first pillar. Now these, I'm doing them in an order, but it may be that you come to digital resilience because there has been an issue and you come in at recovery. Absolutely fine. This is not a linear process. Most people come to digital resilience for recovery because something has gone wrong. What we're trying to do is move to a position where we can be proactive rather than always being reactive. And that is about supporting parents and getting their confidence levels up and their knowledge. So we need to support parents to understand age ratings, for example, so PEGI ratings on games, to make sure that the content that their children are accessing is appropriate for their age. Helping parents to understand the functionality of some of the games that their children are playing and how they can control that. So who else is playing in that game? Are they playing on a private server on Minecraft that another child has set up, so actually it's only their friends? Or are they playing online against anyone from anywhere in the world? If they are playing against anyone, what kind of contact can they have with them? Is in-game chat activated? Are they using a headset to talk to other people? Understanding those helps parents understand what the risks are to their children and what conversations they should be having with their children to protect them from potential harm. And again, how can you spend money? Back to money again. Making sure that parents understand that if they store their credit card, for example, on a games console, there could be the ability for a child to use it to purchase loot boxes or other games or more levels or power-ups or coins, whatever it is that's in their particular game. And having conversations as early as possible. I can remember probably about 10 years ago, doing a project around money for parents and younger children, because children were not seeing money. So when my children were little, they would use play coins at nursery and count out coins and understand about physical money. Children don't have that now. Everything is much more, I don't really understand how it all works. Contactless payments, credit cards being stored. Really important conversations to have with children as early as possible, setting some rules and boundaries there, because we know that there are plenty of gambling-like features in gaming that can tempt children in. And if they don't have that sort of internalization of your voice saying, do you think that's a good idea? Or do you think that is spending real money? What is actually the chance that you will get something from this? All of those kinds of conversations then we're not supporting children to behave in an appropriate and a safer way online. Thank you, Myrta. So when we think about knowing where to go to get appropriate support, this obviously applies to children, but it also does to adults. So parents need those supportive turn to adults as well. They need to know where to go to get good support and information. And we're going to be highlighting some of those towards the end of the presentation. There's lots of functionality within games that can really help keep a safer environment for children and young people when they're gaming. So parents talking to children, making decisions, age appropriate decisions about whether their children should be able to chat with other people, whether that's over a headset or in text, whether making sure that children know about how to report and block problematic players in their game. So certainly with younger children on games like Roblox and Minecraft, we often hear about other players who will go in and wreck what's been built, take all of loot and everything that children have mined. Very upsetting. But making sure that parents and children and young people know how to report and block problematic players in their game. We want gaming to be a positive experience for young people because we know there are so many good things about it. And if we can give them the access to that functionality, that is going to ensure that they start to create a more positive environment for themselves if they've had issues with people before. So those supportive turn to adults are incredibly important. And I suppose this is where the parenting comes in. We want to give parents every opportunity to open up a conversation or suggest that, you know, if something goes wrong or there's something that you're not sure about online, you can always come to me. One of the problems with some of the misconceptions, I suppose, and myths around parents and children online is that children are digital natives and us as parents, we are digital immigrants running to keep up with them all of the time. And they're always just that little bit ahead of us and we're never going to catch up with them. This is really a damaging misconception, a myth, I would call it, for both children and for parents. So if parents are told you'll never be able to catch up with their children, why on earth would they bother? Why would they put the legwork in to understand what it is about gaming or another medium that their children really love? Because we're never going to know. And for children, if they are told that they're the ones that know, why would they bother talking to adults? So we really want to change that narrative as well, because that really helps to narrow that gap or build the bridge across the digital divide and actually focus it much more on the parent-child relationship rather than how much a parent knows about gaming. One of the messages I always give to particularly younger children, back in the day when I was going into schools and delivering live, do miss that, is that actually if you have a problem online, whether it's in a game or on a social media platform, you don't need a gaming expert, you don't need a tech expert, you need someone who's really good at problem solving, and that's your parents. You need someone who is looking out for you, cares about what happens to you, and that's your parents. And obviously the other turn to adults in their lives. But I think shifting that narrative, both for parents and for children and young people, where that means that we can encourage that communication, because we know that children and young people don't report when things go wrong because they don't want to get into trouble. So helping parents remember, for those of you that are parents, that taking a deep breath, counting to 10 before you respond to something that has either scared you or shocked you or made you super angry, because that is the thing that your child will remember. They will remember how you responded when they plucked up the courage to say, I've spent money on your credit card by mistake, or I've got into a big row with someone online and I've posted some messages I really wish I hadn't, or someone is being really horrible to me online and I need your help. Your response is the thing that they will remember. So again, back to that kind of parenting model, rather than thinking about it purely as a technical issue. So there are tools that are really useful, that are built into games consoles, that are built into the functionality of games, or mobile games, etc. But really, parenting is absolutely key. Another thing that parents can do is to encourage that help-seeking behaviours, so they can model that themselves, asking for help about different things, making sure that children know, okay, so I don't completely understand the game, but I do really understand what it's like when someone's horrible to you, or I do understand what to do if you've made a mistake. I've made loads of mistakes, I'm an adult. That kind of messaging means that children are much more likely to talk, to find out where they can get further support. So helping parents and carers and other professionals that are supporting children and young people to open up that communication, making sure that there are consequences, obviously, to breaking rules, but it's not the end of the world, and that the recovery and the learning is just as important as the telling. Thank you, Myrta. So learning. And I think this, again, repeats some of the stuff I've already talked about. And I think there is some overlap between the different tenets of digital resilience. And when you're thinking about gaming, you're going to be pulling from all of these ideas, these concepts, in order to kind of build a package for a particular child or a particular family. So particularly for younger children, I think safety settings are really important, and they allow children to get to start gaming in a really safe and secure environment. Now, there is not a space online where other people are involved that is completely safe for anyone. So thinking about using games for younger children that they play on their own, that are not group games where you can't have chat with other people. As children get older, they will want to do things like Roblox and Minecraft and games console games that involve their friends. So getting in as early as possible to understand, how do we set up a private game, asking your child for help to do that, helping them understand that this is not about restricting them, it's not about spoiling their fun, it is about making sure that gaming is as enjoyable as possible for them. And communication both ways is so important. One of the things that I've found from working with parents over the last, I suppose, 10 years thinking about gaming is that, one, if parents can sit down and play a game with their child, it really opens up their world. Now, it may seem really obvious. There's been lots of research done that says that parents who game, or parents who game with their children particularly, are less likely to think that gaming is a bad thing. I mean, that sounds pretty obvious to me, but being able to understand and communicate with children about their gaming means that they are able then to naturally learn from the experience together. So that communication becomes even more key. You sit down, even if you're just watching your child game, you can be asking, oh, how did you do that? Or what combination of buttons did you press to get that amazing move? Or who else is in your team? Or asking questions so that you are showing an interest, I think is really important, but also helping children to learn if something goes wrong. So one of the hardest things in my personal experience of parenting is the disappointment when you lose, basically. And I still, even when my children were in their late teens, the disappointment of losing a game of FIFA was, it was pretty stark. So it is about that communication of not belittling the fact that they feel disappointed or upset or angry, but helping them to recognize those feelings. Again, it's about parenting. It's about helping us to move into that world where, yes, perhaps children and young people feel much more comfortable and confident, but what they don't have is the maturity to manage what can be quite a complicated environment. So potentially multiple people in the game, potentially speaking, you can hear them, and they're writing messages, and the issues around spending, all of those sorts of things. It's a complicated world for us to be putting children into. And they may look like they know what they're doing because they've got the tech skills, but it's the life skills, I suppose, and the maturity to manage that on their own that they don't have. And that's where we as parents and carers come in, but also professionals that are supporting children and young people more generally. So teachers, librarians, Liam, other people that have contact with children, where gaming is such a massive part of their life. There isn't that distinction between online and offline. So helping everyone to understand that, I think, that communication becomes even more important. Thank you, Myrta. So recovery, it may be that you start to engage with a family because there is an issue around gaming, whether that's length of time, whether that's the effect that gaming is having on a child, maybe something has gone wrong. Recovery is an absolutely crucial part of digital resilience, because we want to make sure that children and young people can get back into experiencing the online world, developing their digital skills, enjoying themselves, learning, developing critical thinking skills. They cannot do that, and you can't develop digital resilience if you're not online. And we know we are well past the point where we could think of children not having those skills, all of us not having those skills. If anything, the last 18 months has shown us that we all need to develop really good, confident digital skills. We need really good critical thinking skills. You cannot develop these things unless you are experiencing them. So recovery is absolutely key. If something goes wrong, we want to make sure that parents and carers, other people that are supporting children and young people and their families, understand who else is out there to support them. And we'll share some links with you in a moment. For most young people, as I said earlier, gaming is incredibly absorbing. It can cause challenges and issues about knowing when to stop, not being able to switch off when you're asked to, maybe neglecting your schoolwork and focusing too much on gaming. If you are concerned that a child's gaming is actually going beyond that it's having a serious effect on their schoolwork, their mental health, their friendships, their relationships within their family, there is now the National NHS Clinic on gaming disorders, which I think Liam will pop a link to in the chat, who work with young people who have serious gaming disorders. It's a very small percentage of gamers that are affected in that way. But again, it's incredibly important that you know that there are other services that can support you, that can advise. And if a child perhaps doesn't meet the threshold for accessing that service, they'll be able to refer you to other services as well. And I think getting parents involved with making a plan for a child, again, it's all about that communication. So you have had this bad experience. These are the things that we've talked about that you would like to do in order to stop that bad experience happening again, and to help you get back into something that you love. So it may be moving to a different gaming platform. It may be moving to a different group of gamers. It may be switching off chat for a while. It may be removing your credit card from their games console so they don't make that purchasing mistake again. It's probably about 3 times I've mentioned that now. So you've probably worked out that, yes, that is based on personal experience as well. So note to self, take the credit card off the games console, but making sure that you have a way forward. And again, all about that communication and parenting. Thank you, Myrta. So these are some really kind of practical things. None of these things come easy, but this is parenting that we're talking about. These things do take lots of repetition and reinforcement, but actually they are a more sustainable approach to to supporting the development of children's digital resilience than just using a rules and tools approach. So I've certainly worked with parents in the past where they have perhaps set parental controls and have an app on their child's phone that tells them everything that their child does. And that for them is job done. We know that determined children and young people can always find ways around technical tools that you put in place. And actually that doesn't open up communication. What it does is it pushes behaviour underground. It means that children are pushing against those boundaries and you may not know. So helping parents to think about engaging their parenting rather than engaging their tech skills is the first thing I would say. I do think setting time limits is important, but I think it's also important for parents to understand the functionality of some of the gaming. So I did a session with some preteen boys a few years ago and asked them if there's one thing that you'd like to tell your parents about gaming or any adults about gaming, what would it be? And the resounding answer was, you can't pause Fortnite. And actually, that may seem a bit flippant and simple, but if you know that you can't pause Fortnite, then you'll know that's perhaps why there are some challenges, shall we say, when you say dinner's ready, switch it off, and your child is halfway through a Fortnite game. So this is not to say that they should just be able to play Fortnite for as long as they want to, but actually helping them think about, okay, I know I've got half an hour until dinner's ready. Maybe I won't play Fortnite, maybe I'll play a game that's much more contained. So I will play one game of Rocket League because that lasts 3 minutes? No, longer than that. Anyway, it's less than half an hour. These have a restricting. So it's about not just imposing those rules, but helping children to begin to self-regulate and understand why those rules are in place. I am definitely a fan of rules and boundaries. I think from a parenting perspective, if there aren't rules and boundaries, it can seem like no one cares about you. So for a child, actually rules and boundaries help them feel held and know that there is maybe something they can push against as they get older, but that perhaps as a parent you are responsive to that and that you can make those changes and be flexible. So encouraging social gaming, I think, is one thing that parents can do if they're concerned about their child spending a lot of time on their own gaming. I think there always used to be that kind of image of a teenage boy in their bedroom with the curtains closed, hood up, headphones on, just focused on gaming. For most young people, they are gaming socially. So I think wherever you can introduce that idea of playing games with friends, playing games against people they don't know, but with those rules in place about perhaps no chat, then that brings a whole new element to gaming. It means that they're not isolating themselves and that is something that they're experiencing with other people. Building in breaks. My son still needs lots of help to remember how long he's been on a game, again, because of the way that games are designed. You know, they are designed to make you want to be there. So helping young people think, or children particularly, right, you've had that time, let's go and do something else, have a break, get up, walk around, then get back to it. And again, for parents, it's about being clear about expectations around behaviour. So the kind of language that you expect your children to use when they're gaming, the way that they talk to other people, the way they behave to other people, and the way they behave if potentially they've lost a game and they're feeling really upset about that, not to take it out on siblings and you. So talking about that behaviour and saying things like, I've noticed that when you've lost a game of FIFA, you are really annoyed and you're slamming doors. I can understand that that's very upsetting. However, in this house, these are the things that we don't do, and these are the things that we do. We always try not to be prescriptive around this because we know that parents are the experts in their children. So it has to be whatever works for the particular family. But I do think having high expectations about how you expect your children to behave online, but also giving them high levels of support to do that. So reminding them, not necessarily embarrassing them in front of their friends, but reminding them about the type of language that's okay to use, the way that they are behaving more generally towards other people, whether that's online during the game or offline after a game. Thank you, Myrta. So providing opportunities for other activities as well. And, you know, that has been very difficult over the last 18 months. I suppose we've had some relaxation over the last few months, but certainly in the depths of lockdown, we know that lots of parents were maybe allowing their children to game much longer than they would have done before, and then really worrying about that. We try to encourage parents to think about screen use rather than screen time. So what is it that they're doing? If they are, there's a big difference between passively watching YouTube for an hour or actively playing a high energy group game on a games console. So those two activities are very different. So encouraging parents to think about that. It may be that another activity could be watching a bit of telly, or it might be walking the dog or going for, you know, taking the football down to the park, but just making sure there are opportunities for other activities as well. As we are always doing as parents, helping parents to think about how they encourage self-regulation and self-awareness. And that really comes from the digital resilience approach, but also the idea of authoritative parenting, where parents feel confident that they will not always be there to guide their children. So they need their children to be internalizing some of that regulation and awareness. It's a bit like teaching your child to cross the road. We would never say, don't worry, you don't need to know how to use a pelican crossing. You don't need to understand traffic lights because I'm always going to be there. I'm always going to be holding your hand. We would never say that to a child. And it's the same in the online space. We hold their hands for that first bit. We talk to them about waiting and looking for the green man, judging the speed of traffic. We want to kind of transfer that thinking to the online world so that in an age appropriate way, we are holding their hand, whatever that might look like in the digital space when they are younger, but they are internalizing the conversations that we have about waiting for the green man, finding a safe place to cross into the online world. So they're able to develop that self-regulation and self-awareness, because I'm sorry, but we won't always be there looking over their shoulder and making sure that they're doing the right thing. We want to help them know what the right thing is to do by themselves. And then finally, getting enthusiastic, maybe the hardest thing. If you're not a gamer and you're as a parent and your child is really into gaming, it can seem overwhelming, a waste of time, boring. But I do think that for parents to be able to show an interest, to take pride in their children's achievements in games, recognise the importance of gaming, that the key thing for me is that opens up the communication. So that means that the conversation that you're having about whatever game your child is playing may well facilitate them saying, oh yeah, this strange thing happened to me the other day. This message popped up and I didn't know what to do. You're opening up the gate for those conversations, and you're making sure that that stays open, because you're not dismissing the time that they're spent gaming. Obviously, you know, when we're not saying that everything about gaming and how long you do it and what games you play is fantastic, but having some enthusiasm, asking the why. So I remember my son used to watch someone else gaming on YouTube. So watch endless videos of a man with a very annoying voice talking about a game that he loved to play. And I couldn't understand it until, of course, I said, why are you watching this guy? It's like, I've learned so much. So he was really learning. And all it took, with my background in tech and parenting, I should feel terribly ashamed of this, was for me to say, why? Tell me what it is that's so great about it. And that is opening up that door for communication. Thank you, Meta. So we don't want to leave you thinking that you don't know what to do, what the next steps might be. So we have some resources here that we can point you to. So the Parent Zone website has all of our research on there, but also we have lots of parent guides to specific games and apps and specific behaviours like in-app purchasing, setting boundaries online, that kind of confident digital parenting. Most of our resources are completely free, so please do head to parentzone.org.uk and have a look at what we've got there. I also just wanted to highlight a couple of other resources for you, but also for parents and carers as well. There's the Family Gaming Database at taminggaming.com, not easy to say, where you can search thousands of games. You can filter for type of game, type of emotion that you want to get from the game, age range, skill levels. It's a really, really great gaming database. I would highly recommend you having a look at that. One particular function I really like about it is around the age ratings, that if a child is asking to play a game that is rated older than their age, parents can go on there and search up for games like Fortnite, for example, but with a lower age rating. And then there's the UKI, which is the UK Interactive Entertainment. I think that's what it stands for. It's the gaming industry in the UK. Have a website called Ask About Games, and again they have some great guides there, short videos to really help parents get to grips with the games that their children love. And Myrta, I'm just going to hand back to you so that you can talk about Big Deal.
Yeah, so Big Deal is a website for young people, but also information for parents and other frontline workers. This is run by GamCare, national charity that particularly focus around gambling, but a lot of the information on there is also around sort of gambling activities as part of gaming. And it's got information about support services as well.
Thank you.
Liam, did you want to just mention what's happening in Leeds?
Thanks, Myrta. Yeah, we have our digital one-to-one support scheme. So at the moment, we have one phone number that anyone can ring. It's on the screen there. We have a team of librarians on hand Monday to Saturday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m, ready to take any queries at all. So it might be that you've been watching this webinar and you're thinking you'd really love to learn more about this, but maybe you don't quite have the digital skills to be able to learn more about it. Well, get in touch with us. At the moment, we're delivering our sessions remotely, although we've got some drop-in sessions coming up, and from the middle of October, from Get Online Week, which is the 18th of October, we'll be restarting our face-to-face drop-in sessions at libraries around the city. So you can get in touch with us through that phone number or through Facebook or Twitter, or you can email us to find out more. And there's also a link there on the screen to Niche Academy. That's just a collection of video tutorials and step-by-step guides on various online services that anyone can access for free if you want to do it that way and learn in your own time as well.
Thank you. So I don't know if we've got any questions from people that have dialed in, because unfortunately, because I'm screen sharing, I can't see them.
We had a question earlier that was just around skin gambling, and maybe just wanted a bit more of an explanation of what it actually is and entails, and maybe how to spot it.
Sophie, do you want to?
Yes, I can take that. I'm not sure how much more I can add to what I said earlier. It's quite an abstract thing, I think, to get your head around. So within games like Fortnite, I don't want to single Fortnite out as a baddie in any way. I just know it's very popular. There are items that you can either earn or buy, most commonly are bought. So it might be a skin, which could be a new outfit for your character, or a weapon. And there are third-party websites that are not linked to those games, the games developers. So they're separate to games like Fortnite, where children and young people can take the items that they have either purchased or earned within a game and gamble them to potentially win more. on a third-party site. So these third-party sites are effectively gambling sites for under 18s. They pop up, they get shut down, they reappear again, and the concern for us, I think, is that gamblification, if that's a word, so that those gambling-like behaviours that are entering into children's gaming. And it's often an area that adults know very little about. And in fact, our research into that was triggered by a conversation that our CEO had with a young person probably 4 or 5 years ago, where he mentioned skin gambling and she said, what? And that triggered us thinking, we don't know this area of work, and this is something that young people are much more aware. And I think as I was saying earlier, for young people, it's not always obvious to them where the risks lie, where the concerns are. They don't have the maturity to think, oh, actually, this is grooming me into gambling. That won't be the first thing they think about. It will be the excitement of having that experience. So that's where we want to equip parents and the professionals that support families to be able to have those conversations confidently about things like skin gambling and loot boxes.
Can I just add something? Because the slide I showed you at the beginning from the Gambling Health Alliance, so the work that's been done around loot boxes, obviously we know that loot boxes are probably old news. It's more about in-game purchasing in general and trading platforms, but there is definitely pressure on the industry, but as well as the Gambling Commission, to start taking some of this activity a bit more seriously to protect children and young people. So there's definitely political pressure there, but we're still waiting on the outcome of the consultation on loot boxes and to see what's actually going to happen. So watch this space.
I think that's a really good point, is that as soon as the spotlight is on a particular mechanism like loot boxes, there's been a lot of attention on loot boxes. It's likely that they will start to disappear and new business models will appear.
So we've got 1 minute. I don't know if we've got some other questions that just popped up.
Sorry, Liam. Someone has asked if it's okay to share the recording. So my understanding is that recording will be on the Leeds Library's website. Is that right, Liam?
We'll add it to Leeds Library's YouTube. On
your YouTube. So yeah, you'll be able to share that link with whoever else you want to. No problem at all. The wider audience, the better. And someone has asked if I know of any YouTubers that talk openly about digital resilience. That is a really seriously good question. Not off the top of my head. I think there are a lot of YouTubers that talk about positivity and well-being more generally, but not around digital resilience. If you want to drop me an email, I'm sophie@parentzone.org.uk. Anyone can drop me an email. I will have a think about that and I'll ask our creative team if they know anyone. Thank you. And I think that's it, Madja. Dead on time.
Yes, dead on time. That's amazing. Thank you, everyone. Last slide. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and joining our webinar. It's been, I hope you've taken lots of things away and you find the websites that we've shared with you useful. Please do keep in touch with us if there's anything else there. I know I've not put my details on, and I'm more than happy to share that with you as well. I will put it in the chat, I think, if I can. And then you have my details, and then we will stop recording.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.